presentation, and we are now. We are very good at time now, and we are very interesting presentation about a very important project going on in Mongolia, in Mongolian and Tibetan books. Our next speaker is Emma Grace Hughes from Asian Legacy Library, and she will talk in the presentation the power of preservation, consolidating, documenting, and restoring Mongolian text collections.
It's all right. It's not full screen, but yeah, maybe I'll wait. So. Thank you. Thank you so much. So it's very good to be with all of you today. My name is Emma Grace Lewis, and I'm going to be giving a presentation called The Power of Preservation, Digitally Safeguarding Important Text Collections in Mongolia. So I am the Director of Development and Communications for the Asian Legacy Library, and the way that this presentation is broken down, I'm going to talk with you about some of the preservation work that we're doing in collaboration with the National Library of Mongolia, and then I'm going to talk a bit about the preservation process, what's included in that. And then last, I'll share with you about some new opportunities and upcoming projects. So first, just to give a background to the Asian Legacy Library, we are a nonprofit organization founded around 35 years ago, and the mission of the organization is to locate, digitally safeguard, and make accessible important text collections in collaboration with library partners in India, Nepal, and Mongolia. So often what this looks like is providing technology and technical training in cataloging, scanning, and data storage for collection holders who have the wish and aspiration to preserve their materials and make them accessible. And as I mentioned, we have a very exciting partnership with the National Library of Mongolia, and we're very honored to work with them. As many of you know, it's one of the most significant cultural institutions in Mongolia, and it has the mission of preserving and protecting the literary heritage of the country. So in 2018, the Asian Legacy Library and the National Library of Mongolia came together with the intention of starting a partnership. And now the National Library holds close to 1,000 years of accumulated cultural knowledge. So it's a really significant honor for us to work with the National Library. What are we working with the National Library on? It's the Tibetan collection, which is the single largest collection within the library. It consists of 30,000 volumes of manuscripts and woodblock prints in Tibetan language. So as I said, this partnership started in 2018. It also includes an organization called the Buddhist Digital Resource Center, which is home to the largest online repository of Tibetan and Buddhist texts in the world. So they're a really good third partner for this initiative. Essentially, the point of this project is to ensure the preservation of this collection, to build capacity and knowledge about digital preservation among the library team, and then to make it possible for more people to engage in scholarship and translation with these materials. And as Tibetan is a very significant liturgical language and academic language in Mongolia across hundreds of years, so it's a very significant cultural heritage collection for Mongolia. So really proud to collaborate on this. I wanted to show a few photos from the library and to give a bit of context for the collection. So this collection, I guess to put it simply, it's been through quite a lot. Many of these books during the period of Soviet intervention in Mongolia, and specifically during the time of the Soviet purges, were under threat of destruction. And I've heard an estimate that over 90% of paper-based heritage in Mongolia was under threat or destroyed during this time. So the books that you can see in this collection are those that escaped destruction, and often they could be hidden in small repositories with not very good storage conditions, or in caves, or even buried underground for safekeeping until after the 90s, when it was possible for people to start bringing those collections to the National Library for secure storage and further preservation. So you can see from these shelves, it's just one shelf of many, so it's a very extensive collection. And this book that's on the ground had just been brought from the countryside from a family who wanted to make sure that their book could be preserved for future generations. So it's a very large collection, and it's expanding. And this is just to highlight that the collection is, among other things, the ideas are significant, and the books themselves are also really beautiful. They tell a story about the authors, the moments at which they were produced, the monasteries or communities from which they were emerging and being published. It's common to find this kind of illuminated manuscript with illustrations and images. But at the same time, there's a real vulnerability of the collection and an urgency to this project. Some of the librarians, even though there's a wonderful effort at the library to create the best storage conditions possible, because for so many years the books were kind of kept in emergency storehouses and often exposed to water, mold, and insects, then librarians have described unwrapping a book, and as soon as they touch one of the pages, it disintegrates or turns to dust in their hands. So the longer that we wait to do this work, actually, more books can be lost, and that's a really a grave thing, to lose all of these ideas, knowledge, and scholarship. So I just want to highlight now two women that I feel really fortunate to work with. They've really spearheaded this project and had the vision, not only to preserve the collection, but also to make it accessible so that people can, around the world in Mongolia, have the ability to go deeper in understanding this core piece of Mongolian cultural heritage. On the right is Saina Gyambajor. She's a scholar of Tibetan Buddhism and the project manager. And on the left is Ishka Bayapugan, who's the director of the National Library, also a wonderful poet. So I just feel really grateful for the support that they've had and the way that they've carried this vision for the collection since 2018 and into the present. Okay, so now about the preservation process, what's actually involved. You can see on the screen here that this is the digital catalog that it's basically the first step after a librarian will go into the collection, take a book off the shelves, and then there is an initial training provided by the Asian Legacy Library and the Buddhist Digital Resource Center in this digital cataloging system, which is it's very detailed. So it includes of course, the name of the text, but also the page size, paper grade, the full colophon title, and any illustrations. So this is basically what makes the books discoverable once they're preserved. And one by one, the books go through the system, and then there's a record that's associated to this book, so that it's not just, like I showed you in the previous slide, not just a kind of beautiful book, you can see it's in Tibetan language, but you can really start to understand the history. It can be something that's incorporated into scholarship research. Again, this is just going through the catalog. We're really proud of this because the data that they're producing is very consistent, very strong, and from scholars who are working from the collection, we've been hearing that it's really helping a lot to be able to have this depth of information. And the team at the National Library is now very self-sufficient in training and educating others in this system of digital cataloging as well. So yeah, to date, there's been over 110,000 volumes cataloged. We've made a lot of progress, and there's also a lot more to do, so it's an ongoing project. Also just wanted to highlight that once the digital catalog has been created, there's also a rewrapping process and then a physical tag that's associated to the book, so that in the future people can go through the collection and search through physically when they want to do some research in person. Next stage in the process is digitization. This is what creates the kind of physical image that allows the kind of makes meaning of the catalog record in a way, as the two are associated together. So essentially, when the project started, ALL, Asian Legacy Library, provided this scanning system and the computer and the lights and training. So this is a kind of state-of-the-art model, and there are several of these stations that are installed in the library. But again, now the team is just working independently of the library. Yeah, so you can see it's quite a big system, and we work with these because it creates the best possible image of the book, each of the pages, and just one by one they'll be photographed. So it's kind of time consuming. They need to be cropped as well, but I'll show you kind of what that results in. The other important thing about this is there are other scanners that can be used that are a bit smaller, but because so many of the pages are fragile, then this is the system which has the least risk to the material itself and to the pages. So yeah, this is the team working on the project, and there have been over 1 million pages scanned to date, more every day. So this is something that they're really proud of, to have such a good system in place for preserving these materials, which previously it was really just when you walk into the library, impossible to know the extent of them, and also impossible for people to really benefit from the work and the ideas inside of them. So I wanted to highlight some of the books that we're seeing that are part of the collection. So this is the text. Let me make sure I have the right title. This is the Sadhana 51 Deity Medicine Buddha. And it's a handwritten text by the Buddhist scholar Losang Tashi. And the reason we know this about the author and can start to do more research with this book is because of the detailed colophon titles. So looking at the text and the colophon together, it's possible to start really engaging and finding out more about the author, the content, when and why this was produced. And this is another text within the collection. It's called The King of All Wish-Fulfilling Gems, a liturgical method to make offerings to the 7 medicine Buddhas. So I chose this text because I find it very beautiful. I think, to have the illuminated manuscript, you can tell that this was made with a lot of devotion and a lot of commitment. And at the same time, you can see the water damage along the lines, along the margins of the page, and even beyond the margins of the page. So it's an example of something that we're very glad to have preserved, because if it were even a few years later, then this water damage can translate to mold or attract insects, and this entire page could be destroyed. So this is a success. Okay, and then the next step, making this accessible. And I just want to say that the National Library has been really far-sighted and generous in wanting to not only preserve their material, but also make it possible for scholars, practitioners, translators around the world to start to engage with what's actually included in the collection. And maybe I'll mention too that just as part of the preservation process, all of the materials included in digital libraries on the cloud, but the preserved material is also secured on hard drives, and on those hard drives, there will be the catalog records and the scans. They're held both at the National Library and remotely for secure preservation. So this is an example of a record on the Asian Legacy Library's online portal. Just want to mention that in every case, the National Library is identified as the owner and the source of the material, so always pointing back to the National Library. But searching through in this way, or searching through the library of our partner, the Buddhist Digital Resource Center, you can kind of look for a particular search term or time period and then find text within the collection and start to really understand the extent of what's there. This text is called The Wheel to Destroy All the Opponents, an esoteric method to urge the 5 patron spirits to act. And I also mentioned at the moment, Asian Legacy Library is building an enriched platform for searching the collection so that it will be even easier for scholars, researchers, translators all over the world to really engage with this material. And it's been exciting to collaborate on this and to see through the vision of the library to let people really understand and appreciate this material. I wanted to highlight an example of a scholarly tool that I think is really wonderful. It's from the Buddhist Digital Resource Center, and you can access this at bdrc.io. But essentially, they collaborated with a few different scholars and projects. One of which is the documentation of Mongolian monasteries project. That was a collaboration between the Arts Council of Mongolia and the Mongolian National Archives. Also used data from Dr. Isabel Charlot. And they found these place records, kind of GIS coordinates for existing Mongolian monasteries and those monasteries that were destroyed, which so many were during the period of Soviet purges. And through their library, basically the books that are being preserved through this project can be linked to particular monasteries using the catalog record. So often the catalog will indicate, oh, this was published in a particular monastery, particular location. And so little by little, using tools such as this, it's possible to reconstitute histories which during periods of Mongolian history, there were real threats against and attacks against. So it's kind of uncovering some of this that was under attack for so long through research tools and digital tools. Okay, so I'll mention a couple opportunities. I see actually I'm missing the logo of one opportunity, which is meant to be right above that American flag. And it's an opportunity that comes through the British Library, through the Endangered Archives program. So basically, they have given funding to the project with a focus on preserving works by Mongolian authors within the collection. Some of the books are by Tibetan authors, some of them are by Mongolian authors, as there's a real exchange, academic and religious exchange between the two for many years. But this project has the intention of highlighting specifically contributions of Mongolian authors in the 18th century so that we can just kind of shine a light on what work was being done and start to find some connections between those authors and those ideas. And then the next opportunity is the project was really fortunate to receive support from the U.S. Ambassadors Fund for Cultural Preservation and to be working with the IMSC in Mongolia on building additional capacity for preservation within the National Library so that the team there can be kind of example and can be leaders, which will then allow others within the country to learn about this process of digital preservation and can promote more exchange, more understanding, and just between America, between the United States and Mongolia, more of an awareness of this rich cultural heritage that Mongolia is home to. And then 2 new projects. Really exciting that we're starting a monastery project with the Genden Monastery. We're really honored to be a part of this. The Genden Monastery Library holds approximately 1 million manuscripts and 200 woodblock prints, which date back to the 13th century. And during the period of Soviet intervention in Mongolia, over so many monasteries were destroyed, so many books have been destroyed, as I was mentioning. I have the statistic that there were over 700 monasteries that were destroyed in a period of just around 5 years. But after this took place, the monks were able to travel in the 90s to people's homes and into small repositories where the books had been held, and to start gathering together material that had been secreted away and hidden from destruction. But in this process, the monks actually got exposed to a very toxic kind of mold. So they brought these books together, but several of the monks became very sick from doing this work. But because it's their devotion, predominantly these are Buddhist books, so they feel a call to preserve them, bring them back together. Now the books are clean and the monks can be healthy again, but it's just to illustrate it's such a labor of love, basically, to take care of these books for this community and for these monks. So just last year, the monastery library approached ALL and asked to start a collaboration to preserve this collection, which, because it's so extensive, it will take a very long time, but we're really honored to work together on that under the guidance of Venerable Munkatar, who's there in the photo with the director of the Asian Legacy Library. His name is John Brady. Next opportunity, we just started in this past year as well, is work with Erdanzu Monastery. And this is the oldest surviving monastery in Mongolia. It was established in 1585. And what's really exciting about this project is that they've asked not only to have support preserving their own library collection, but also to receive trainings to go out into the local community and preserve books that families are keeping in their homes or in smaller monastery libraries that have been kept for a long time. So this will be a kind of mobile network that these lamas can run themselves. And we're very grateful to everyone in this photo, but especially to Venerable Basa Lama, who's in the center with the hat, who's really spearheaded and envisioned this project. So we're just getting started now. And something else I really like in this project is that there's an opportunity for reprinting to take place. So if a family has one collection of a book, they can scan it, but in addition to that, make copies for if there are 4 children, each child can have a new reprinted copy. And I really like the vision that they have, and it's very humbling to be able to be a part of that with them through the technology and training. So the hope that we have for all of these projects with the National Library of Mongolia, with Gamdan Monastery, and now with Erdanzu as well, is that little by little, this work can be preserved, that there can be more knowledge and training around digital preservation and preservation technologies in these communities and in Mongolia, and that through the preservation and accessibility of this material, there can just be a wider appreciation for and understanding of this particular cultural heritage collection and the richness of Mongolian cultural heritage more broadly. So I'm so glad that I could share with you about these projects, and thank you so much to the Mongolian Cultural Center and to all of you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah. Thank you.
So, 2 questions very quickly. Ask both together, answer whatever order you like. Number one, because I know you're taking handcrafted books like that, and in general, each one will be unique. But if you run across a book that has been that is replicating another book, that is a duplicate of another book, you treat that as a completely separate book. You just treat that as another work in that. You sort of put it to the side and come back to it later. That's the first question. Second question: for farm researchers, do you plan to integrate this with some sort of translation API, or the basically incumbent on the researcher to say, okay, I need to understand Michik or Tibetan or something?
Both of those are really good questions. So to the first, which is about duplicate copies, it's a really good question because we will see, like for particular Buddhist sutras or teachings, that it's very common to have many reprintings, and on a certain level, it's good. I've heard from some researchers that actually it's good to preserve all of those because then looking at the whole collection, you can see why was this interesting to produce so many times, and what does that mean? Where was it being produced? What was the process? However, because there's so much to do, the system that we have right now, I think we have a limit of when there are 5 duplicate copies, then we stop, and then we will come back to those at the end. But just because we're trying to kind of move through the entire collection, The thing about the duplications also is that sometimes there will be kind of marginalia or other things of interest within those. So you don't want to jump to the conclusion that it's, it's something similar in terms of content. So just leave it alone. But we do have some limit there. And then your second question about the APIs. Yes, I think that is the intention, so that you won't just need to use Jaivi or Tibetan Unicode to search through the collection. I know that that is a priority, but I think for right now, if you just type in an English search term into the system, then it's not set up for that right now, at least within Asian Legacy Libraries platform. But as we're still building this kind of new version of the digital library, I believe that that is a piece of what's wanted and needed. Also, just really briefly say that the Buddhist Digital Resource Center is doing some really interesting things with artificial intelligence as well. That makes it possible to kind of group together from the entire collection certain terms, and then I think that that will also support the kind of ease of search across multiple languages as well. So just yeah.
You mentioned that the National Library had about 1 million volumes in the repository and about 200 volumes.
So that's actually a Ganden monastery. Yeah, in the Tibetan collection at the National Library, there are 30,000 volumes and 1 million pages that we've observed so far.
What percentage of the collection will
I have got what percentage? So within that collection, none is in classical Mongolian because it just separated out all of the books that are in Tibetan language, and the Mongolian language collection is held in a different part of the library.
So the project will only be Tibetan.
It's for texts that are in Tibetan language, but many of those books are by Mongolian authors, written in Mongolia, but not in Mongolian language. Yeah.
Oh, that's a big.
That was your question. Okay, yeah.
This excellent work. One thing I noticed that Tibetan language, pronunciation, good information. But I wonder, Tibetan language itself has so many horizontal bars. And I not discovered that, and I think so. Tibetan language, with its true version of this,
I think so. Yeah, I think that. I mean, there's a great deal of exchange starting in the 15th century between Tibet and Mongolia, and definitely, I know that within monasteries there were monks that would kind of travel between and share ideas and share books. Just how many of the books is
it also comes some of the assassin.
Yeah, there's the connection between Tibetan language and Sanskrit.
Okay, one last question, Malcolm.
Yeah, so you mentioned about you have similar project going on in India and Nepal, right? So how different in terms of challenges, similar and different in working in Mongolia?
That's a good question. I think with this project in particular, there's something helpful about just having identified the entire collection as being valuable. So we're just moving through that one collection book by book. And in India and Nepal, the work is, as I mentioned when I was talking about the mission of Asian Legacy Library, the location piece is a bit more significant because there isn't as much of a collection that's already been consolidated. It's more about going into smaller collections and building those relationships. In terms of the books and the material themselves, one difference is that in India, some of the centers that we're working with do inputting of the text. So it's basically character by character, doing a kind of phonetic entry so that the text itself can be searched, which is kind of similar. If you've heard about optical character recognition, it's similar to that. In Mongolia, it's really just a scanning project, and especially looking at the status of the books, the kind of vulnerability and urgency of the books is part of the reason why we made that choice, looking at the political history and what that's actually done just to the raw material itself. And it gives a kind of different timeline for the project, and yeah, all the books are different as well too. So it's also about collaborating and working with Mongolian scholars who can give guidance about how to highlight particular pieces of the collection. Yeah.
Thank you very much. You did a wonderful job on this project, and then I'm very happy that I just mentioned a few words here, and you already cataloged 110,000 books. So this cataloging one book is already difficult, and then you did all these jobs. We have the book Tibet and Mongolia. We have same word for the 100,000 is boom, right? And then also we have 10,000 books, so 10,000 is tum. So you already had boom and tum. Tum boom boom tum means a lot. Sometimes they doesn't mean any numeral value. It's just a lot. You did a lot of it. And then the side, the whole 1 million pages already scanned. That's also very good. And another one thing is very good thing in here. This conference is it's about the presentation. It's about your work, and also it's cooperation. It's also about new friends, like one giving idea. Here we have here at the Scholar Square has a very good collection in the Mongolian, Tibetan, and Total script books. For example, Dr. Postwater from Germany, he has a very good big collection in Mongolian books. And we have Gambold here, who works in the Tibetan studies. Gambold Okshin from Mongolian University of Education, and he helps. Maybe this project I don't know. He helps in cataloging Tibetan books in Mongolia, back in Mongolia. And also we have here Dawadar Chwakshe from Holt region. 10 years ago, I visited Holt University. He showed me his school university and also his own collection of taught script books, clear script books. It's the very good collection there. And for those scholars, they study, and then for librarians like us, and then you, and then they can help them. It could be a very good project in the future. I think they're having good idea. And also our brother Minjing here, and for Mongolian books, ACMS, American Center for Mongolian Studies, has initiative to similar work you have here, digital library. That's also ongoing project. So all here, the scholars in the Mongolian studies, we have this very good opportunity to work together. And thank you very much for this. And before